Hey everybody, welcome to Bucs UK TV. It's episode 144, and I'm joined by Sukh, Stu, and Marianna. Clearly not the result we wanted, Marianna, but we did have a good time, didn't we? Last night was the Bucs UK 40th anniversary London watch party, and it was almost Tampa-esque in its proportions. We had 68, I think I counted in the end, our largest turnout ever for a watch party. I'm hoping you can remember some of it to tell everyone what it was about.
I, I think the first thing that I'd just like to say is thank you to all of the people that put their efforts into organising it.
Yeah,
They'll probably say,
Alex and Christy definitely pulled it out of the bag.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. Obviously, the food and the drink and the venue were great. Huge big screen takes up the entire wall, so that's always nice to watch the game, together as a group like that. And then lots of prize giveaways and lots of little freebie extras. All of us with our little Bucks UK pirate hats and just a great atmosphere. Really great to see some of the people. We don't because we're all so spread out. We don't always get to see each other, so it's nice to actually spend a Sunday and watch the game with people that have become my friends over the years. So it was
Yeah.
just an amazing
And
night. Really,
actually, yeah, so about the friends thing, that's absolutely true. It's great to see everyone, but there were also some new members there, and it was really nice to see everyone taking them under their wing as well. So no one was left in the corner alone, which was nice to see. That was really good. And yeah, so we'll be back next year. I think that venue's definitely we're going back there again. I think I spoke to David and Phil. We think we're back in Leeds as well, and of course we'll have the AGM in the off season, which will be the cornhole tossing competition. So we'll see how we get to there as well. Suck, let's turn to the game then. Obviously, wasn't the result we wanted, but I think there's some positives on one side of the ball and some negatives on the other. Would that be a good way of summing it up, do you think?
Yeah, certainly. There were some positives. I mean, we saw obviously the way the offense was sort of spread with Baker doing his best with, limited resources, really. We're still in a situation where, some of our sort of younger receivers are still trying to find their feet. Jalen McMillan, I don't think, obviously he suited up yesterday, but obviously he didn't have any targets. Didn't use Trey Palmer at all as well yesterday. But some of the positives to look at, the screen game with Rashad Wright, the running game is working really well with Bucky Irving. And obviously, those of you who know me very well, I'm an Oregon Ducks fan as well. So I've sort of watched Bucky Irving grow over sort of the last 2-3 years, and obviously seeing him drafted by the Bucs as well, it's just been a really, really positive start for him. And I think it's a really good combination. And then you add Sean Tucker to it as well. We've got three really good running backs. And how often, have we said that we're a Bucs offense, really? So, yeah,
Yeah,
there were positives.
that's good. So I mean, stick with that because Sean Tucker was a bit missing in action. It felt like I could understand why some of the receivers maybe weren't getting the action, but it felt like a few weeks ago. I've lost track of how many weeks ago. Offensive player of the week, and now not even really on the field.
Yeah, it seems to me that they sort of deploying Sterling Shepard in that role.
Mm,
Because I know
mm.
the other week Sterling did a really good job, to be honest, as playing maybe sort of the third, running back, and those routes. And maybe again, I think they only used him once in the running game as well, and he wasn't really targeted as a receiver. So it seemed to me that there was a bit of sort of hit and miss with how our play calling this time, which has not actually been an issue over the course of the last few weeks. I really think Cohen's done a good job in spreading the offense, but I think on this occasion, I think maybe a bit wary of obviously the 49ers defense. When you got Warner and the likes of Bosa coming at you, there's not much time for Baker to obviously make those key decisions. And I think that really played into the 49ers hands. But I think, again, obviously the stats might not show it in terms of the actual yardage he got, but I think Baker had a safe game. That's the only way
Mm,
I can put it.
mm.
There wasn't too many deep balls out there. I don't think there was anyone really there who can get the contested catch. And I think that is the problem at the minute. is we don't have different variety of options, so we can't throw it down the field as what we'd like to do.
I agree. Yeah, Stu, let's stick with the offense. Let's stick with the Baker heroics because they were Mahomes-esque, I think, weren't they? In the grass, horizontal, upside down, firing it away. He did
Yeah, I
us
think
proud, didn't he?
he was great. I think I was probably one of the only people on the forum. Now there was a few of us. There was a few of us
Pete and Adam
who
were there
didn't
as
make
well, I
it.
think, weren't
Who
they?
didn't make it to London. But yeah, I couldn't believe. He did a lovely
Mm,
pirouette
mm.
to escape one and got a shot downfield, which I don't know. I think I was screaming for a defensive pass interference on that play. I'm not sure whether too many other people who weren't Bucs fans were, but I was screaming for one. And then, well, as Tom Brady said, handing off Bosa and running away from it, and then chucking it to was that to Otten, wasn't it? And getting that first down from there was just incredible.
Yeah, I think that one went
Gradium's.
to Rashad White, but I think
I was
Cade Otton was
Yeah,
another
yeah.
yeah,
one he really, as you said, Suck. It was like slim pickings for the receivers, but luckily Cade was still firing it right as well. It was
yeah.
good to see him involved.
Yeah, and I thought, sort of picking up on what Suck was saying, it was like um, you do sort of wonder whether you're missing those Godwin and Evans, and they're your outs normally, and Cade he did pick up quite a few targets and did well there, but apart from that, he's sort of like he doesn't have his go-to guys. Um, but even without them, he was solid, and yeah, he kept us right in it and didn't do anything stupid. And when he did have to scramble, he made some fantastic plays.
Yeah, he did. And I know, Mariana, you and I both were sort of sharp inhalation of breath when we saw that Tristan Wirfs wasn't in. I mean, maybe it was the Jaeger bombs talking, but actually, it took me a while to notice he wasn't there actually. And I think that was probably a good sort of a reflection on school, but actually, it didn't last all game, did it?
Yeah, I mean, Worths is a different level of talent. And as you say, I think there was a sort of sharp gasp as
Mm.
he limped off. And we were all sort of waiting for the injury report to come out today. Now, hopefully, they're
Week
sort of
to
saying
week,
he's
I
week
think.
to
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's only a sprained MCL. It's not a more serious injury, and hopefully he'll be back. But the left tackle position is so important, and even more so when you're up against the likes of people like Bosa. And I think expecting Skill to come in and be worse was maybe a bit unexpected.
Mm.
And I don't know how much you can scheme or prep for it, because we've seen it before where we've put extra tight ends in to block when we've been a bit weak at tackle positions. And that's the obvious sort of route to go down. But then that closes off another opportunity for us to sort of throw. So in and of itself, it's kind of making the situation worse for the passing game. Um, yeah, I think I'm just glad that Worse is going to be back. But on the whole, it didn't feel like it was. It felt like the O line held up well. I think they only gave up 2 sacks during the course of the game. Now that may be more on Mayfield getting the ball out early, um, rather than necessarily the O line holding up for forever for him to find a target. But it's a combination of both. So.
Yeah,
It
and
was it
yeah,
was good
that's
to
good.
see that they weren't crushing us with that defense. I think the O line stood up well.
And Suck, like you said, it was the screen game, it was the short passes. Rashad White, we all think is brilliant when he's in space as a receiver. I still think they ought to think about a better way of using him, maybe not even in the backfield, given our receiving core.
Yeah.
But I mean, but you mentioned, I think I saw the stats from someone tweeting, very little action for the receivers after, after about a third of the way through the game, really. We kind of gave up on anyone outside the tackles. Is that an indictment on the roster we're left with at the moment, do you think, or just underperforming on the day, or something about the 49ers and the scouting report?
Well, I think it's like I was alluding to earlier. I think the last few weeks we have still kept up the yardage, in terms of of course we're missing Evans and Godwin, but we've still been competing on offense and we're still showing a high level of play. I think one of the things I noticed was we didn't get that speciality Baker run that we're kind of all love to see. I know we had the one, obviously, the issue, with Bosa, but obviously he had to then throw that down. He had no choice really on that fourth down play. But I think there was times when, we were expecting Baker to maybe make that play, but the 49ers defense, are just so compact that it's hard to have that room for maneuver for Baker to do that. Even in the running game, I think we only had 37 odd yards in the first half, and I think we only started implementing the running game sort of late in the second half, and that's when we were more effective and actually getting some points on the board with Bucky obviously getting the rushing touchdown. So I just think, yeah, there was just a bit of sort of inconsistency and uncertain. I think we were kind of just testing the water, so to speak, earlier in the first half, and then eventually we sort of got around to getting there. But obviously, with it being a close game, then it's always 50-50, isn't it?
It's hard. And Stuart, do you think Curran got that balance right? Because in previous weeks we talked about how it's great. We start off great, get the run game going, and then it disappears. And as Sukh says, it kind of felt like it was the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, they did sort of pick up the run game a bit in the second half. And to be fair, I was all for it. And when well, on the final drive, which we had, I don't know, it was flags galore, which I don't think I've ever seen. Well, I have, but normally it's against the Bucs. But I was a bit disappointed that it just seemed to be Rashad White the whole time, where it's sort of like, Bucky had made a couple of really good runs and obviously scoring the touchdown as well. And I'd have loved to have seen him in a couple of plays on that final drive. I mean, I don't know. It just sort of seemed to stall. Well, well, I suppose it didn't really get going. It was just kept going by the flags. But I really wanted to see him in the red zone having another little dance. And
yeah, I guess the challenge is, on the one hand, you hear coaches talk about keeping the hot hand in and going with whatever's working. But at the same time, if someone's gassed and puffing that far into the game, dare I say it again, Sean Tucker on the bench, he's going to be fresh, and Bucky probably, I've not seen him out of breath, partly because he's one of those players. I've noticed a trend there. No one in the NFL wears a mouth shield anymore. They're just all sort of flopping around down there. No one actually puts them in anymore. So he's clearly not getting out of breath. Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, talking about last drives, let's switch then Marianna to the other side of the ball, because I think we all had a sinking feeling. Was it 43 seconds, 47 seconds left? The 49ers are going to get the ball and it's tied up. There was a sense of impending doom there, wasn't there?
Yeah, unfortunately, it just it felt almost scripted,
Mm,
and we kind of felt like we knew how it was going to end, and it was going to end with a field goal.
mm.
It I mean, the clock management is so important in the game nowadays, and weirdly, it's looking at the stats. Like when I look at the stats, I don't feel like it represents the game I watched, because we actually had, like, I think only about 3 minutes less than the 49ers
Yeah, felt
in
like they had
terms
they
of
felt like they
possession.
had a drive for the whole of the second quarter at
Yeah,
some point, didn't they?
and we had very similar play counts.
Mm,
So, but it didn't feel like that.
mm, mm,
But yeah, I mean, you leave a minute on a clock for any team, 40 odd seconds, 50 seconds for any team to get within field goal range, and particularly with the new kickoff rules. You've already given them potentially an extra 5 yards if you kick it through
mm,
the end
mm.
zone, which is going to be your likely move because you're not going to drop it and let them return it. So, there's all those sorts of calculations that go into it, and I just think I think that most of us, if there's a heartbreaking loss and then there's a heartbreaking loss, I would have been upset to lose that game because we didn't even the score up. Um, But at least if we hadn't gone on that fourth down, it's almost like we would have seen some heroics and it would have been over. Not to kind of get your hopes up. Maybe overtime. Maybe we can even win this still. Maybe we can get a turnover, and then to lose so crushingly at the end. And as you say, just in that last 40 odd seconds. So yeah, a bit of a heartbreaker, and we kind of felt that our defence it just isn't going to hold for that 40 odd seconds.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. You just don't think we're going to either get to the quarterback or get a turnover or an interception. I'm not going to get that fumble. I'm not going to get that interception. I'm not going to get that crucial thing. And I think in previous years I might have actually thought that we would have been able to, but I'm just not seeing the amount of turnovers or interceptions or. So I just, as soon as I saw that, I just thought, yeah, I feel like I know how this is going, and the script is going to play out. And of course, Moody's going to go from sort of zero to hero.
I think especially when it started with a flag from the from the get-go for the
Fancy one as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, from the kickoff sort of thing. You're another 5 yards. You just gifted them, and it's like there's not actually many yards that they need to gain in order to get into field goal position. If it was for a touchdown, then I'd have been a lot more confident because we seem to do well at sort of stopping them, but not stopping them at field goal range. We were just quite fortunate that Moody didn't have his shooting boots on until the last kick.
It's a good point. We seem to tighten up when we get inside the 20, don't we? It feels like we're quite good at batting them down in the end zone, but we just can't stop them scoring points otherwise.
Yeah. One of the key things that I looked up was sort of the yards after catch when it came to Purdy. So 49ers came into the game as one of the bottom 5 teams, I believe, in yards after catch. And out of 350 odd yards Purdy had thrown for, 179 of them were actually from the receivers and the yard after catch. So that just tells you a lot about our defense and where we are at the minute in terms of our sort of tackling and just, our coverage and just getting to players. Even that first touchdown from Pearsall, it seemed to be slow motion for me. I didn't think he was accelerating at a massive speed, and we just seemed to slow down. And even players who were quite highly reliant, like Whitfield, for example, he just didn't seem to have that edge. And I don't know whether he's still maybe sort of recovering. He's obviously had his injury issues as well. He's not quite been at the levels we would expect him to be. And I think that's become a bit of a difficulty for us as well. Just a bit of sloppiness there.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple of causes there. So let's just so it could be tackling, it could be personnel, and it could be scheme, I guess, because I think we all know that when we're blitzing up front, we end up being zone at the back end. We don't seem to want to play as much man-to-man as the rest of the NFL. Maybe that's because of who we think we've got. Okay, maybe that comes back to personnel. Maybe that comes back to tackling. But kind of where do you think the barometer's pointing for the reasons behind all that yak?
I think it's I don't think it's personnel because we've seen a lot of these guys last season. Do a stellar job. I know we do have injuries. Obviously, Jamel's out for the minute, and obviously now we've lost Carlton Davis. But at the same time, I just think it's a lot of the scheme as well that is being deployed at the moment by Todd, and I think that seems to be a lot of the sort of chatter that's going around, in terms of any criticisms is from maybe the coaching at the minute. It just seems really soft at the minute, and it's got to go down on the players as well, because we've seen some of the tackles, sort of the sort of going in there sort of mindlessly and then missing, these tackles. It just seems to be happening a lot now. And even yesterday we saw, I forgot the receiver's name now for the 49ers. Jennings, that was it. He seemed to be sort of dancing around us really and getting that extra yardage. And you just seem to think, why can't we just connect with these receivers and get them on to the ground? It just doesn't seem to be happening now. And a lot of it is key third down plays as well. I think for third down plays, we're really soft at the moment as well. I know we only gave up 5 third down plays, but 3 of those were pretty vital where they ended up with scoring, scores at the end of it. So that's another thing that I think we need to be mindful of.
Yeah. Marianna, I mean, in terms of obviously the natural tendency when we're talking about yards after the catch or the passing game is to focus on the secondary. But we could maybe let's just dwell on the linebackers for a little bit. I mean, I personally think that was probably somewhere where we maybe underperformed. I think, we've still got good personnel. There's nothing broken. And in fact, Yaya Diaby had a great game at times. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, we actually saw him on the field doing some good stuff, and that was great to see. But it feels like I think the linebackers as a crew didn't really come out the locker room after the half.
I think this is what when I've come on and I've seen it before, and it seems to be this consistent thing that we do as the Buccaneers, and we just leave that sort of middle area, that sort of 5 yard, 10 yard area in the middle of the field empty. We get burned by Kittle, we get burned by McCaffrey going, round us and taking those short dump offs, and we get burned by the tight ends, as I say, by Kittle in that same sort of area, and that is the linebackers. That's where I expect to see linebackers. Levante, I think, is still playing at the high standards that he always does. But I do think maybe that is where our drop off is, because after Levante and we let obviously Devin White go, we can discuss that all day long whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. But it's Brit, isn't it? I don't think
KJ.
he's not. Sometimes he seems. I never like to tag a player as lazy. I don't think a player can get to the NFL as lazy, but he seems, he doesn't seem to have the same drive that Levante does to get, into the tackles and so forth.
Well, this is it, and we will come on to talk about coaching in a minute because some people are saying it's coaching, and so this is the kind of the answer is probably a little bit of everything, isn't it? But for my mind, there's something around the scheme, and again, I'm so not an X's and O's expert, but it feels like the outside linebackers, whether it's DRB or JTS or Braswell if he's in, they are basically really D linemen. It's kind of the scheme is actually everyone's rushing, trying to fill a hole, get to the quarterback, bring the pressure. So really, there's only Britt and David potentially back, or if we're a nickel or something, even potentially even less. So actually, there's not a lot of linebacker. There's a lot of field. If they're playing deep thirds or shell or anything like that, there's a lot of ground for those linebackers to cover, and I think that might be why the tight ends are open because it's not rocket science. You know pretty much before the ball based on the motion or whether it's more likely to be zone. So if it's going to be zone, you think, well, I'm just going to go and find out where they're not and just sit there.
Yeah, and I think we consistently see this as well. What you're saying, we are a heavy blitzing team anyway, and so when you do end up bringing Diaby and Tryon-Shoyinka in, as you say, we're sort of then who's there to cover those spaces. Now, I thought that when we brought in Tyke Smith, when they drafted him, he was basically drafted for that sort of
what I would call the Mark Barron switch.
Yeah,
maybe a
for
poor choice of name, maybe, but
and so I kind of expected to see him playing, potentially more linebacker type position when we are blitzing like that, so that we're not getting burnt then over the middle. So I expected to see him, adding that extra piece in there so that we don't hopefully get burnt over the middle. So that was kind of what I thought maybe he was, but it doesn't seem like we're playing him necessarily in that. And as you say, we end up with 2 linebackers back there that just end up a mile away from wherever the action ends up going, and we get burnt through the middle all the time.
So, Sukh, I guess in conclusion, then let's draw a line under the D. But the last thing then to talk about is coaching. And that's the hot mouth, take on social media sometimes seems to be, it all starts with the head coach, especially when he's the defensive coach as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. Obviously, there's, he's got the reputation for it. I mean, obviously, he's been with the organisation now for a number of years. He's done a stellar job for us, no doubt about it. It just seems that from time to time, though, now that he's taken up the head coaching responsibilities, there seems to be a bit of a disconnect between him and sort of the defensive play calling. So we've got to obviously try and look at that maybe in the off season. Obviously, there's plenty of games to play at the minute, and we've still got a lot to fight for at the minute. But I think we've got to just simply have a look at how we organise ourselves. So I think Marianna hit that on the head with regards to Tiki Smith and just that openness, because you can't just have two linebackers there and have all these options, for these receivers to just be so open, because that puts a lot of pressure then on our corners. I mean, you can't really argue with a corner, trying to chase down, a player who's coming at them. It becomes really hard when someone's running at you to try and, force through a tackle. So that needs to be coming. That pressure needs to be coming early. We need to do maybe we need to blitz less, perhaps, and just be a bit sort of mindful in terms of how often we go ahead and do that. Maybe we're being a bit too predictable, because we can see it just even watching on TV. You can see, that when there's this certain third down plays coming, their receiver's going to get it, and it's just a deflating thing to see, isn't it, from time to time when it's happening all too often this season.
Okay then. So before we wrap up, Stu, I was saying it yesterday to everyone that would listen to me, droning on. It's a third of the game, special teams. You only had to look at the end of the Chiefs game. The Chiefs are still undefeated because of special teams. How everything turns on a sixpence. How did the Bucs do on special teams yesterday?
Well, I mean, so we got the punt recovery, the muff punt recovery. That was nice. Thank you. Big play there really, I think, because that sort of that really spurned us on at that sort of time. I did sort of think, well, it's not great, but that sort of that was great. I don't think we even had a kick or punt return ourselves. I don't think we did. I've got us down as having a poor punt coverage. I think towards the end there, I think we let them run quite a bit, which considering you just in the first half had got that massive turnover, to then sort of let them down. It wasn't great. I'd say, got the points on the board. It was solid, but
yeah.
It's an up and down thing. The turnover was massive for us.
Because in a game, it seems like this year, maybe it's just me watching the Bucs more than everybody else, but it seems like there's fewer turnovers in games this year. It feels like maybe it's just the Bucs ones, but therefore they're that much more important, I think. And that was huge. So yeah, but I think you're right. The return game still seems to be a little bit suspect. And the sort of the roulette of long snapping, punting, at least the place kicker keeps being the same. So
yeah. And we did a lot better than Moody did.
Yes, and again in other games, kickers getting upset with people and sowing roster discontent.
It's just a weird thing that's happening at the moment, isn't it, Kieron? You even see some of the most experienced sort of special team players like Tucker and Koo, even there. They seem to be struggling now. I don't know what is going on at the minute.
It can't be a mental thing. They're too good for that. I don't know either. Yeah.
It's bizarre to put that. I would need to look into that a bit more, to be honest. But it's just really bizarre.
It does seem like that. Maybe it's just because we only get. I don't watch all the games. I'm not like Murph. I'm not sort of still going on Wednesday watching all the games. But kind of it feels like with a small sample size, that's what it looks like anyway. Okay, well that's probably enough dissection. We'll nurse our hangovers for a bit longer. We'll join you later in the week then, and we'll previewing the Giants game. You're going to get a double with Marianna because for those that don't know, your husband Paul is a Giants fan, so you're going to be both previewing and reviewing next time, just to say I told you so, I'm sure. But we'll see then. But Sukh, Marianna, Stuart, thank you ever so much. And as ever, we'll see you all soon. Go Bucs!
Go Bucs!
Go Bucs!
Go Bucs!